Here we go. We're now recording. Welcome everybody to the workshop for this month. I'm really excited to, see Ryan's face and more of your faces as we introduce ourselves. But it's really great to be here. I want to thank Elizabeth Smith, CFA's Head of Marketing, for joining us today. She's going to impart a lot of knowledge about marketing, which is why you're here. So looking forward to that. And I also want to introduce Kihantis from Code for Kentuckiana, who's going to be presenting about their outreach strategy when they launched their brigade, and they got a lot of really great press. So would just love to kind of dig into some of the tactics that their brigade used, as it might be helpful for others. So what I'd like to do is start with some introductions. It's a small group, so it won't take too long, but I'd love for folks to just say hey and maybe say what brigade they're from. And we don't have to do anything kind of funky today. So why don't we just say hi and where you're from, and I'll let a couple more people into the room. So Ryan, do you mind getting started?
Sure. So I originally was part of the a brigade up in San Francisco, and through my volunteering work there, I eventually ended up working for the Mayor's Office of Housing. And yeah, it really changed my life. So yeah, and I'm really grateful for this group. Now I moved down to LA, and I'm active in the Hack for LA area with Nina them. So
that's wonderful. Thank you. I'm Kihantis. You can go next.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted. So I'm Kihantis, and I am the steering committee chair for Code for Kentuckiana. I'm new to this group, but I've heard a lot about Code for America prior to joining. And so this is actually a reboot or relaunch, if you will, rebranding for the Code for Kentuckiana group.
Thank you. Chris, you're up next.
Hi, I'm Chris Matthews. I'm with Raleigh, Open Raleigh in North Carolina.
Cool, thank you. Blake, you're up next.
Hi, Blake Freitas. I'm actually not with the Code for America Brigade, but saw it in the Slack channel and was interested in learning more about what this conference had to say.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. Jonathan, you're up next. Okay, we'll move on to Greg.
I am Greg Boyer. I am with the core team, Code for San Francisco, and I'm mostly interested in, as we launch an event series, how we market that and how we get people to come.
Perfect. Allison, you're up next.
Hello. Sorry about that. Allison, I'm the communications lead for Open Oakland, so I'm here to learn about communications and talking about our brigade.
Thanks, Allison. Brian, we have you up next. Okay, we'll move on to Colin.
Hi there. My name's Colin. I'm the Hack Night lead for Open Oakland, the brigade in Oakland, and we're fundraising right now. So I am trying to market us for fundraising purposes.
Awesome, thank you. And Gina, I have you up next. Okay. Jonathan, I see your face. Are you able to introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah. How you doing? I'm Jonathan Payne. I've been working with Code for BTV in Burlington, Vermont, and I'm working on starting a brigade in Connecticut where I live. So anything you got, I'm interested.
Thank you for joining us. Laura, I have you up next. Just your name and what brigade you're with. Okay. Well, with that, with introductions, if anybody wasn't able to talk but wants to say something in the chat, introduce yourself, please feel free to do so. And I'm going to hand things over to Elizabeth, who is going to present and give us all the knowledge.
All the knowledge might be more than I can deliver in 15 or 20 minutes. But what I will say is just kind of, can you guys see it yet? Here it goes. Okay. Basically what I wanted to talk with you guys about today, or what Veronica and I talked about talking to you about today, is about how to get the word out. And this is the first of what I hope will be many opportunities for us to have conversations about marketing brigades. And it's going to be pretty focused today on key message development and how to pitch media. And so what I would love to do, I heard there is some desire for how do I get the word out about fundraising? How do I get the word out about events? I would love to, with Veronica's permission, come back to you with some more targeted things about how do you get people to show up for your brigade events, and how do you pitch a fundraising message. I think those are two really good interesting things that we can talk about in this context. So so forgive me if you don't get all that you want today, but I look forward to coming back and chatting with you more. So I'm just going to start out by how we talk about Code for America, so that you guys not only can see key messages in action, but also as you're talking to other people about the network that you're a part of, you have some language around what Code for America is all about. So at Code for America, we believe government can work for the people, by the people in the digital age, that services can be simple, accessible, and easy to use, outcomes can be measurably better can cost less, and we can serve everyone with respect and dignity. And that it would be the biggest source of societal good for a generation. So let's all build it together. You guys know that innately in the work that you're doing in each of your communities. We talk about our work in the frame of delivery-driven government, which sounds complicated, but it's not as complicated as it sounds. So we do that in three ways. One, we show what's possible. So we help build services that show government what can happen in a digital age. We help other people do it themselves. So we teach other people how to implement change in their own environments. And we work to build a movement that spreads change through all levels of government and in communities across the US. And then just a little bit about delivery-driven government. The idea is that it's driving policy and operations around delivery and users. And what that means to me is that it is making sure that we are focused on how something is going to be delivered and the experience of the person on the receiving end of that delivery. So we understand and meet user needs. We use real-time user data, not years-old estimates, and we employ iteration from intention through implementation. Just a little bit about developing key messages, and this will be directly related to your particular context. First, what is a key message? It's a bite-sized summation that articulates what you do, what you stand for, how you're different, and what value you bring. I think it's really important that it's the core message that you want people to remember and repeat. So thinking about bite-sized chunks and ways to frame your key messages in repeatable formats is really important. The process of developing key messages helps you prioritize and crystallize the information that you want to tell. So what is it that I'm actually trying to say? It helps you ensure consistency, continuity, and accuracy across all your communications. So how do I key message? I think you have to think about, first, it starts with the audience. You guys do this in your technology work, no question. You start with the user and you radiate out. I think it's really important to think about this in the marketing and messaging context as well. So who are they? What do they know about you? Why should they care? I think this is really an important question to always ask, is why should they care? I think we can come out with messages that we think are really important, but if we're not relating it back to the user needs, so to speak, then it can fall flat. And then even more importantly, it's what don't they need to know? How can you edit it out so that you're getting to your core essence of the messages that you want to that you want to convey. In your key messages, you want to focus on benefits. So, and really articulating what's in it for me for the audience. So again, putting that user at the center, and then prove your points with supporting information. A good framework for thinking about how you develop a key messaging framework for communicating with your audiences about your organization is, what do you want them to know, what do you want them to feel, and what do you want them to do as a result of receiving the information? If you can answer those, yeah? Is there a question? Nope. Okay.
Sorry, I thought I was muted. I was like, oh yes, no, feel, do. That's good. Sorry.
I'm glad you're engaged. Yes, know, feel, and do. And so it's really a simple way. If you can look at your key messages or something that you've written that you're putting out into the world, whether it be a fundraising proposal, whether it be an event solicitation, like come to our event, the things that you really want to focus on are what do they need to know to get engaged? How do you want them to feel, and what do you want them to do? Because we are all emotional human beings, and we need to connect on all three of those levels. Another thing to keep in mind is making it interesting. So don't using jargon and acronyms. If you want to be inviting to your audience and you want to really bring them in and be inclusive, we have to be clear that we have to be clear in our language and make sure that we're not using things that are insider language or keep people out of knowing what we're talking about. I talked about using proof points as you're developing your key messaging framework, and those proof points should be 1 or 2. Don't have 50 facts about why my brigade is awesome as the core elements of the things that you're putting out into the world. And then use as much as you can specific examples through metaphor, analogy, or a true story. This is less important on the event side and probably more important on the fundraising side, which is to say, telling a story really brings people into the message that you're trying to convey. And then last, we're going to talk about pitching to media. I'd be happy to, as much time as we have, I'm definitely interested in hearing from Kehantis because they did a great job in Kentuckiana in pitching the story about the launch of their brigade. I'm still seeing it come through in the clips, which is awesome. And so, but you know, if there are other kinds of topics that we have time for today, I'm totally open to that as well. So the first thing to think about when you're pitching media or trying to get the word out about your story is that there are 8 news values that reporters generally attach that, you know, really try to convey in a story. It's not that they're trying to convey all of these at once, but a news story is going to have one of these as a leading value. The first is timeliness. So it's something that's happening now or soon. Prominence, it involves someone big in your community or a celebrity or a name that someone would know. Proximity, it's happening here. Conflict, it tells the story of A versus B, and it leads to the question, who will come out on top? In that, the A and B in that scenario could be a person, but it could also be a concept. So citizens are fighting for better access to data. So the B is around lack of transparency. It's not necessarily that there's some villain in necessarily. Significant. It's something that will affect a lot of people. Human interest. So it's something that demonstrates the human condition. You've developed some application in your community that brings people together in some way or makes people's lives better in some way, and you can articulate that. Novelty, so it's the first or the biggest, and we saw that with Kentuckiana, that they were seen as the first or rather a new thing. It's unusual, so it's bizarre or uncommon. We have all seen those things in our social media feed that are very weird, that are covered by the media. So how you pitch, and this is the way that you can go about it for any kind of pitching. So basically you want to start with a short and personalized message to entice a journalist, and and this works in any medium, you want to start with a targeted media list, and this requires research. So I'm going to hold on this point for a second. You're not going to get anywhere from building a media list that is a shotgun approach. The better thing to do is to start to try to build relationships with people who really care about the kind of work that you're doing, rather than just sending it to everyone under the sun, because the next time you send something to everyone under the sun, they'll ignore you. And so if you're really in it for the long haul and you're trying to develop relationships and you're trying to really build a brand for your brigade, targeted media lists are key. And so the way to get to a targeted media list, there's a number of ways. Libraries often have resources such as subscriptions to Cision, which is a media monitoring tool that has databases of journalists. But even more, reading the publications, either online or in print, that you're trying to target, and getting to know their work to see what they've covered in the past is a really good way to do this. And I think it's the kind of thing that you, if you spend a little bit of time on the front end doing, it'll pay off in many dividends later, because you have this list that you can always go back to. You want to do a strong subject line that captures the attention of the journalist, but don't be cheesy. Be straightforward and provocative, but maybe not. Don't go over the top. A hook. And this is really important. You have to think about why this story is the right story for their readers or viewers, not just any readers or viewers, because they have probably have a specific perspective, a link where they can learn more, and contact information, so I know who I know to reach out to if I want to write a story. So some common mistakes in pitching, I think. The most basic one is that you're pitching something that doesn't fit their audience or their beat. So I'm a reporter that covers sports, and you're pitching me on an open data project or something. I mean, that's an extreme example, but you know what I'm saying. Like you just hit up the wrong person altogether, or the wrong publication or channel. It's all about you. You have to include the benefits about whatever it is that you're talking about to the reporters and their audiences. Media will never be your audience. So as you're thinking about defining who your audience is, you really need to think about media as a conduit to your audience. You've submitted something to them that has no compelling angle. When we think about the territory that modern journalists have to cover, it is a mile wide and an inch deep, and they're covering lots and lots of things. We've seen newsrooms obliterated in terms of the number of reporters who are able to cover stories in newsrooms. And this is in all channels, online, traditional media, radio, TV. And so one of the things that you can do to get a pickup is really think through a compelling angle from the perspective of the audience of that publication. So why do they care? Why is it novel? Or, why is it a big deal? And kind of spoon feeding the reporters. And part of that is, and we'll get to this in a second, giving quotes and giving sources right off the bat so that they can talk to them. And then the last is that there are too many angles. So it can be this, it can be that, it can be this other thing, and they don't know what to cover. It ends up being a mishmash of really lots of elements that are not very compelling. And then press releases. We often hear people talking about press releases, and they do have a place. I think the place is that it is a particular news event that you want to draw attention to, but they're not required for outreach to reporters. So if you have a story that you feel like a reporter might be interested in learning about, or that it would be relevant to your community or the audience of a particular publication, just a simple pitch letter is enough. It doesn't have to be a press release. But if you're doing something really significant that you want to draw attention to, a press release format can be really effective. But it's also important to think about how are you getting it out outside of how are you distributing your press release outside of sending it to reporters? Press releases are as much for social and SEO as they are for the reporters themselves. If your press release or your pitch is not well written, people will throw it in the trash immediately, because more than anything, the volume of things that people are getting in is really significant. Oops, back. How do you go back? And so you want to help them as much as you can. So similar to the pitch, you want to have a compelling, concise headline. You want to include facts and statistics where you can. You want to include sources who are ready and available. So don't put somebody in your press release who is like out of the country on vacation for the next 2 weeks. Make sure that you get to your point, that brevity is best. I would say a press release from a brigade probably shouldn't go over a page and a half at the max, and that you use straightforward and informative writing. When you think about the format for a press release, this is a good guide. I stole it from the internet, like all good things. So you've got your headline at the top. You start with an intro, and this is called the inverted pyramid. It's the way that most news stories are written. Start with a bang, make sure that you're grabbing their attention, and then provide sources so you have credibility, the essentials of why a story is significant, quotes, anything else that's missing, and then make sure that you're leaving your contact information and any notes to a journalist that you need to give. So that is all I had for today. Did I keep in, Veronica, is that the right length?
Yeah, no, that was great. And there was tons of information in there. So I'm really excited. I think that we had one question already from Ryan. You mentioned a journalist resource during one of your slides, and just wondering what the name is.
It's called Decision, and I just put it in the chat. It's a pay-for thing, but some libraries have subscriptions. And so what I would say is you can go to any librarian and say, I'm trying to get to a journalist database, and they can absolutely help you with whatever their library has as a resource for that.
Okay. I used to work at a library, so I know.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can.
Libraries, yes.
I know. Is there how is the information organized? Is it kind of like you look them up by topic, or
you can do geography, you can do topic and geography. It gets pretty granular.
But like someone who like covers sports or something would have that attached to the name. Oh, yes. Okay.
And then you could do someone who covers sports in Los Angeles.
Okay.
So if you want to,
sounds really helpful.
Yeah, if you want to get granular, there are databases of journalists out there. I would say in smaller communities, it's probably best to read the publications that you're pitching, because the same people will cover the same stuff over and over again.
Okay.
Cool. We can just make this speak up if you have a question.
Sounds good.
Laura has a good question. She asks, how do you see Brigades as part of the CFA image?
Well, I think that this is Elizabeth speaking, not necessarily the speaking for Code for America. I see Brigades as integral to the brand of Code for America. What CFA tools are available? Can you say a little bit more about tools? When you say tools, how do you define them? Do you mean a little bit more on that would be helpful. So I think Brigades are a huge part of the Code for America brand. I think that when I look at the 3 pillars of show what's possible, help others do it themselves, and build a movement, gotcha. Then you guys embody fully this the build a movement part. You're doing all of this work all across the country, but you're also showing what's possible in your own communities, and you're helping government do a lot of this work themselves. And so I see brigades as integral in all the various pillars of the Code for America mission. And so in terms of tools, I guess I would put that back and say, what kind of tools do you need? I know that you're volunteers and that you need anything. But I would say there is a brigade style guide that has been updated in the last year. There are a lot of Code for America resources, and we're working on more. But it'd be awesome to hear from you, maybe in the chat, some of your pain points, so that we can start to develop things to support brigades in their. How can brigades be more present in the Twitter and newsletters? I think one of the things that we need from you guys is more content. So a lot of the times we don't know what's going on in the brigades, and to highlight it. I will say that so that's one thing, is like make sure that we're aware of stories. We troll the brigade Slack channel, and we also have a channel where the comms folks from those brigades that have comms folks can let us know about their content. And so I would say making sure that we're aware of the things that are going on in your neck of the woods would be really helpful. And that way we can do a better job of telling your stories.
Yeah, I'll jump in here as well. As Elizabeth mentioned, there's a Slack channel. It's called the Content Collaboration Channel, and it's a invite channel, so not everybody is on it, so everybody doesn't get flooded. So if you are a member of your brigade, if you or your brigade are not part of the Content Collaboration Channel, please just ping me on Slack or shoot me an email, and I'll make sure that you get added in. And this is how we add things to This Week in Civic Tech, as well as Amy, who's our social media manager. She monitors the Content Collaboration Channel in order to post things on Twitter. And Laura, I think you asked, do we follow the brigades on Twitter? And yes, we do.
Oh, is Hack for LA Nina already in there?
I'll have to double check, Ryan.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure someone from Hack. I cannot speak today. Some Hack for LA is in there, but I'll double check.
I was curious about this question also, but are there anything that Code for America does not want to affiliate themselves with? Like we should be careful about talking about certain subjects, or?
I think, well, so we're a nonprofit organization, and with that becomes a good bit of responsibility around what we can and can't talk about, or what we can or can't endorse. For example, we cannot endorse particular political candidates. We have to remain.
Okay.
We have to remain nonpartisan and not neutral, as our operating principles say. So that would be an example of something that we can't do, and that we would encourage brigades not to do also, is taking a side on some sort of particular, not necessarily an issue. We can talk about issues. It's about getting behind a particular candidate.
Okay, that makes sense, because I work in housing issues, and it's very contested right now.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to, figure out what's appropriate or not.
You can definitely, as a brigade, have an opinion about what's the right policy or the right position on a particular issue, as long as it's not connected to
a candidate. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fair.
Yep.
Any other questions? Yeah, okay. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And will we be able to have a copy of those slides to share? Perfect. So we'll make these slides available because I know there was a lot of content on the slides as well. So thank you so much. And we are going to now move forward to Kihantis to present about your strategy at Code for Kentuckiana with the relaunch of your brigade.
Okay, so I'm not sure if I'll get my slides and everything in as eloquently as Elizabeth did, but I will do my best. And some of this, which I'm very pleased to see, will kind of echo a lot of the things that Elizabeth has already covered, which is awesome because I can say wholeheartedly those things really work. So I think rather than starting with my first slide, I will just try to pull in our actual press release. So you can see like what we did there, and it seemed to work really well. So I'll see if I need to do a screen share. Okay, all right, let's see. So are you all able to see my screen now? Okay,
Yes.
So this is on our website, which we didn't make the website live until the press release. So we also had the Twitter, Facebook accounts. We avoided Instagram. It's not really necessary for what we're trying to do. And then we launched all those things at the same time. But this is on the very front page of the website. And I think that we did a good job of weaving in Code for America as an introduction to the community. And then we basically just used our mission statement. So what that means is that we had to do all of these things before this press release. So we had to have our mission statement. We had to have those social media accounts up and ready to go. And then as Elizabeth talked about, we had some information, but I don't know if you can see here, we hadn't quite nailed down our date yet, but we wanted to put something there. So we worked really hard to like backfill and make the date happen. So if you can get as much done as you can, then it'll be fine. So then what we did was put what we would consider kind of some heavy hitters in civic engagement in our community as quotes. And we also requested our first quote from Code for America. This was something we did where we decided to go forward and ask forgiveness later. And that's why it says representative for Code for America and not a specific name. But we thought it was very important to have this quote, and we felt like it was going to be okay. So then we have other quotes from, the chief civic innovation here, volunteer who's actually a site manager for the Bell Project, and then a litigator who works for housing issues in the city, right? So these are kind of like big names in our little community, right? And then keeping our quote, which basically just reiterates like our what we hope to do, right? And really drive it in inclusivity and trying to get new folks, right? So that is our main objective with the press release, is that you have the ability to come outside of the current networks and reach a broader audience. So that's really what we wanted to do there. So I will go to my slides. Not sure how this looks to you, but this is good. Do you guys see? I think you see the wrong screen. Let's try that. Okay, so everything we did like super collaboratively. And as Elizabeth said, like you want to do this work so you avoid technical debt later, right? So basically you do this work on the front end. We had one meeting literally about like the launch, right? And how we're gonna launch it. Then we had a meeting, like one meeting about the press release. And we decided who would be the most valuable players to send that message to. So we didn't send it to like the Courier Journal, which is like the big paper here, but we did send it to like local papers that we thought would be more interested and have even like more of a media and local web presence. So I just want to be clear, all of this information and what we did was not driven by me, but it was driven by us as a team. So I would say you need to send out a press release, right? It's going to boost your initial meetup or anything else that you're going to do. Attendance, you gain community awareness. And like I said before, like it gives you the ability to get outside of your normal networks and just drive those numbers up. Now you need to be prepared to welcome those folks when they get there, but at least you can get them through the door. So use all of your free press, the Facebook, Twitter, start those accounts, try to make the names as consistent as possible. Code for Kentuckiana is long and clunky. So we did go for like code for KYA in a lot of them, but what it is, they're all the same. So for all of the Slack, the Meetup, like all those channels are like all the same. So very consistent. And if you do not know how to write a press release, find someone who can. As Elizabeth mentioned, like you need to know how to write this thing. You need to know what information they want, and you want to have that designated list. So lucky for us, we had Dawn Howard, who's on our steering committee, and she was able to like pull up the exact format of like exactly how they write. It's kind of like an APA manual, right? You need to do it the way that they are prepared to receive it. So I would, if you don't know how to do that, find someone that can, or reach out to us, and I would try to have Don at least send out like a template or something to help you out. But also in those slides, it kind of told you exactly what you need to have in that press release. Let's see, we defined all those things that we needed to have done before the press release. So we knew we needed to have a meetup. So we had our meetup page set up, even though we didn't really have the date. So we just kind of said, hey, it's tentatively for March 9th. So you want that information in that press release. We also had already had meetings about potential projects. So we were able to speak to potential projects when people reached out. And also I was designated and volunteered, whatever, to be the contact person for the press release because I was the most available. And it's my job just to continue to drive in the consistent message of what exactly our brigade is about and what Code for America is about. So anytime anyone called, I was there, I answered, emails back and forth to try to get on my phone call. And I would say have a professional headshot on hand just in case they ask for it. But that's just me. But you definitely want to have your messaging down. And in order to do that, it's really just easy to use your brigade language. It makes it very easy. And if you don't have specific language, then it's very easy to use the Code for America language. We are building with, not for, right? We're, technology engagement, civic engagement. Like you don't really need to go outside of those lines too much, I would say. And keeping up with the momentum. So anytime you do a press release, you want to have something that's going to happen within like 2 weeks. So you don't want to have it too far out. And you want to give people opportunity to like repost and like and talk about it without like losing the momentum. So we just had our first meetup Saturday, which again, I can say these things really worked because we had over half the people that were present were brand new. Like they had never even been to like a tech type of meetup at all. Some of them were like Code for Louisville students, which is like a web dev boot camp and stuff like that. And I think that is about it. But then there were news outlets who came Saturday that we didn't reach out to. And I'm pretty sure it's all driven off of this press release.
Oh, that's cool. So you had news outlets come to your first meetup a couple days ago?
Yeah, so they came out, did a video interview, took a ton of B-roll footage, and then also did a written article online. Let's see. Okay, probably. Yeah, so this is So Wave 3 is like one of our big news outlets or whatever. And they came up with their titles, advocates for technology and public data. Kentucky aims to solve problems in the city. I'm like, yes, I couldn't have thought of that. So yeah, I mean, and so these are write-ups just from Saturday.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Does anybody have any questions for Kehantis?
I have one if you have any thoughts about this, but are there any like keywords or hashtags that are used by civic tech groups? Because I'm kind of, when I look on that online, it's kind of all over the place. So I don't know if there's like a push towards using, something that'll help people find these types of content.
If that's specifically for me, we push out civic engagement a lot, and then you can tag on open data or technology, but like driving it with civic engagement first.
And so the phrase civic engagement, or okay.
But hashtags, I would say, are only useful on Twitter. Hashtags are no good on Facebook anymore.
Yeah, they're useful for Instagram, but if you're not using that, then it doesn't really matter. But, okay.
It looks like Laura says she uses civic tech and hashtag local gov. We see civic tech. We see hashtag civic tech a lot.
Okay.
To me, that's probably the most used one in the space that I've watched on Twitter. But agree that there's not really there's also public interest tech. There's a number. It's pretty diffuse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But I was just kind of curious what other people were using.
It's a great question.
How did you identify civic tech leaders in the community to seek quotes from?
I think that's for me, not Elizabeth. So these are people that we actually have relationships, right? Because it's what we do, like in our off time, right? But if a lot of government offices also now have like an office of innovation or tech or something like that, and you can reach out to those folks. And before, launching, say like, hey, this is what we're doing. But I also think that part of, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, part of Code for America's kind of framework is to have an engaged government partner. The other folks, so the Bail Project leader is a friend of mine, but also like this is a very hot topic in Kentucky. Ben Carter was a friend of another steering committee member, but we have also been engaging him on doing a renters' rights app. So is some of these are folks that we've reached out to do projects with, who just kind of happen to have like some buzz going around too. And if you don't know these folks, like it's okay to reach out and say, hey, this is what we're about. Like, are you down with this? Like, let's go.
Okay, thanks.
Laura had a couple more questions, and I think that they're directed to you, Elizabeth. So one of them is, do you have tips for non-special event marketing? We only have maybe one special event per year.
Well, I think you do need to have an outcome in mind. So, really clearly identifying what you want in terms of outcome is the first thing. So if your intent is kind of new member recruitment, for example, that could be an evergreen goal that you have. I think that you have to, what I would start with is looking at where you've recruited people from in the past, or where people have come from in the past and how they have been engaged. Actually, Laura, do you want to tell me what kind of problem you're thinking of as an evergreen problem that's not a special event? I don't want to go down a rabbit hole of something you don't care about. I'll take recruitment, and then if you want to let me know what you're interested in. So basically, think about how people came to your brigade in the first place. Also, think about places that have like-minded individuals. I think that it's really clear. It's really helpful to be clear about the kinds of jobs that people will be participating in as a part of your recruitment, because people are like, I'm not a tech person, or I am a tech person, but I don't really get how I'm going to get engaged in a particular thing that you're working on. And I think that many of you would have better ideas about retention, but in terms of new brigade recruitment, I think you're always going to be thinking about where are places that people hang out, either online or in person, and how can I go make connections with them. I think a lot of the marketing that happens around new member recruitment is shoe leather. It's like getting out there and talking to people and making sure that people know about your brigade. And what I have heard from other brigade leaders at the Brigade Congress and other channels is that it's a combination of a communication strategy and an outreach strategy that's in person, and making those connections. I think you saw that in Kehantis's efforts as well. He was making connections with other like organizations that shared similar values as a way to raise awareness about the work that they're doing. Amen, Carl. Make room for everyone to contribute. And I think being able to spell that out is as much a part of your recruitment as anything. You can be inclusive, but if you're not showing people the connection points, they don't know how to automatically make that connection to what you're working on.
Any other questions? No? Okay. Well, I think this has been wonderful. If anybody has any other questions, I'm sure Elizabeth and Kehantis can be available in Slack or other forms of communication. So with that, I think we can wrap up a little bit early unless anybody has something pressing.
We can share this to other people, right? This, okay. Just want to make sure.
Yeah, and we'll be publishing this video on YouTube.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And Veronica will share the slides too. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, with that, I'll give everyone some time back in their evenings. Thank you so much. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Kehantis. And thank you, everybody, for joining.
Oh, thank you. This is really helpful. Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Veronica. Good night, Elizabeth.
Wait. Before everybody leaves, sorry, I had one other thing to mention. There are interest groups that are being started by Laura, and is in her role as a NAC member of the National Advisory Council. And one of the interest groups is going to be a communications interest group that's going to get launched, I think at the end of this month or very soon. And so if anybody is interested, please reach out to Laura, and you should see further communications about this interest group and other interest groups in our various channels, whether it be by Slack or This Week in Civic Tech. There are already monthly design meetups, which have been really successful in trying to gather support around other specific issues that folks are interested in to talk more about. And that's it now. All right, thanks.
Thanks, Veronica.
Bye.
Thank you.